Vicky Ford, Conservative MEP for the East of England. Significant falls in roaming charges. Roaming charges are those costs of using your phone abroad. What do you make of them?
Yep, this is great news. So from today, there's been yet another cut in the cost of using your mobile phone overseas. Receiving calls, making calls, those costs will come down again. And importantly, the cost of using data is cut by over half. So this is great news for the people going on abroad this summer or for business.
And indeed, summer holidays just round the corner. These are the kind of costs that people are racking up, aren't they, or have done in the past?
Yes, and this has been in the past big costs. You've gone on holiday and then come home to a surprise bill. But now if you're travelling within the EU, remember this is only within the EU, your roaming charges have been cut again quite considerably. In 2 years' time, though, the roaming charges are going to go to zero. And when you go away on holiday, if it's just for a shortish period of time, you should only be paying the same as what you would domestically. We call it roam like at home from 2016.
And I'll ask you about that in a minute. But these cuts that we're seeing from July, from this week, are people still getting caught out? Is your mailbox, are you finding your mailbag full of people complaining about this kind of thing?
No, 5 years ago when I started this job, my mailbox was stuffed full of complaints of people who'd had exorbitant bills. This cap on roaming seems to have dealt with the problem, and it means that the network operators, they're still getting a bit more than you would normally pay, but it's no longer that exorbitant bill shock that people used to have.
I mean, the mobile companies could have done this themselves rather than the EU imposing caps. What do you make of the fact that it has taken European legislation to bring these prices down?
Yeah, we have always said this would have been much better if it was led by the operators themselves, but they didn't do that. They didn't do that 5 years ago, so that's where we started this program as saying, what is a reasonable amount to charge when people are overseas? And clearly what was being charged in the past was not reasonable, and which as a result meant that many people didn't even use their phone when they were overseas. So we've managed to get a balance on that.
Further down the track, there's talk, it's not yet completely firmed up, but it looks like roaming charges could be got rid of altogether. What do you make of that as an idea? Is that something you support?
Okay, so this is really quite exciting, potentially. This is in 2 years' time, the idea that you should be able to roam like at home. So if you're just travelling for a couple of weeks on holiday, your own prices that you normally have at home should be the same as what the operator overseas charges you. Now, the exciting thing about that is it means that the operators need to be able to share infrastructure. And why that is getting me really excited is in the East of England, in North Norfolk, or just where I am, 10 miles out of Cambridge, you can get coverage on one network, but if your operator is somebody else, you're in a black spot, a not spot. And if we can now use shared infrastructure, use that technology to mean that the one mast can offer both operators coverage, we can fill in those not spots, and that would just be fantastic for those of us who struggle all the time with my phone works here but it doesn't work there. Have you got coverage? Well, I've got coverage, you haven't, etc. Let's see if we can make this work. We do need to make sure that the cost of this isn't just passed on to the lower end user, because that will mean that the people who can least afford it end up picking the bill. So we do need to be careful about this. But if the technological improvement means we can fill in those not spots, that is great for rural East Anglia.
And in parts of rural Norfolk, parts of rural East of England, what difference would it make to get rid of those not spots, for example, for businesses that are trying to work in these areas?
Well, absolutely. I mean, it is ludicrous. In my village, I can get coverage on my network, but 2 miles away, I can't. And so if you're trying to contact the shop or they're trying to contact people, they can use their Wi-Fi, but they can't use their mobile coverage. So if we can get this technological advance that means that you can share your mast, that could really unlock a whole load of areas of coverage, so that we have the same benefits as people who are living in towns who can choose between network operators. And at the moment, if you live in a rural part of East Anglia, you're very much locked into this is the network that works in my village, but it might not work in the one a little way away. So I hope we can make this work. We've got to keep a firm eye on making sure the costs don't just get passed on to the lower end consumer, because that would be unreasonable, and we need to make sure that the operators have still got enough income to cover their infrastructure investment as well.
And one brief final question, where does it all lie ahead? Because I said it's not quite all sorted out yet, so what still needs to be kind of tied up for this to be become a reality?
Okay. So the roaming charges, the reduction starts today. Okay, 50%, more than 50% off your data coverage next time you're in Europe downloading data when you're on your summer holidays. That's good news. The bigger package of looking to the future, 2016, etc., that is still in discussions. It has a complicated issue that the EU is also trying to power grab some of the decisions on granting of licenses. And I hope that that will get removed out of the package in the next stage of negotiations. But if we can do this, unlocking the infrastructure to fill in the holes on our black spots in rural East Anglia, that's got to be great news.